The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Wellington Enterprises like bullets against bulletproof glass. Emma Rodriguez pressed her palm against the cold surface, watching the city blur into watercolor streaks 30 floors below. The storm had come from nowhere, just like everything else that had turned her life upside down in the past month. The merger documents are ready for your signature. Mr. Wellington. James looked up from his mahogany desk, his green eyes catching the lightning that split the sky behind Emma. She had been his executive assistant for 4 weeks now, and still, every time he looked at her, something twisted in his chest, something dangerous and completely unprofessional. Emma! His voice was rough, strained. Close the door. She hesitated, her hand frozen on the brass handle. In all their late nights together, all their shared dinners disguised as business meetings, he had never asked her to close the door. The glass walls of his office had always remained a barrier between them and the whispers that would surely follow. Is everything all right? Just close it, please. The soft click of the door echoed like a gunshot in the silence. Emma turned, her back pressed against the wood, and for the first time since she'd started working here, she looked truly vulnerable. Her usually perfect composure cracked, revealing something raw underneath. I got a call this morning, James said, standing slowly. From my private investigator. Emma's face went white. James, I can explain. Can you? He moved around the desk, each step deliberate. Can you explain why Emma Rodriguez doesn't exist? Why there's no record of you before 3 years ago? Why your social security number belongs to someone who died in a car accident in Ohio? The thunder crashed overhead and Emma flinched as if she'd been struck. Her breathing became shallow, panicked. You had me investigated. I investigate everyone who gets close to me. It's how I stay alive in this business. His voice was cold now, the warmth she'd grown accustomed to completely gone. The question is, who the hell are you really? Emma's hands trembled as she reached up to remove the small silver necklace from around her neck. Hidden beneath her blouse, James had never seen it before. She held it out to him and he could see it wasn't a necklace at all, but a USB drive. My real name is Sarah Chen, she whispered, and I've been sent here to destroy you. The words hung in the air between them like a death sentence. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside James's office, everything had gone perfectly, devastatingly still. James stared at the drive in her outstretched hand, his mind racing through every conversation they'd had, every moment of connection he'd thought was real. 3 years, he said quietly. You've been planning this for 3 years? No, her voice broke. I was planning it for 3 years. But then I met you and everything changed. And now I don't know what the hell I'm doing anymore because I wasn't supposed to fall in love with you. The confession shattered something inside James's chest, but he couldn't tell if it was his heart breaking or his last wall of defense crumbling. He reached out, his fingers brushing hers as he took the drive. What's on it? Emma's eyes filled with tears she'd been holding back for weeks. Everything you need to know about who I really am. And everything that's going to happen to you if we don't figure out how to stop it. Lightning illuminated the office in stark white. And in that flash, James saw not the woman who had been deceiving him, but the woman who had just handed him the weapon to destroy her. Sarah, he said her real name like a prayer. What have you done? She stepped closer, close enough that he could smell the jasmine perfume she wore, the scent that had been driving him mad for weeks. They have my sister. The organization that sent me here. They've had her for 3 years. Every week I don't deliver, they hurt her. Every time I tried to leave to warn you, they sent me pictures. Her voice cracked. Pictures of what they'd do to her if I failed. James felt his anger war with something else. Something that felt dangerously like understanding. Why tell me now? Because yesterday they moved up the timeline. The final phase happens in 48 hours. She grabbed his arm, her grip desperate. They're going to frame you for money laundering, insider trading, and the murder of your business partner. They've been building the case for years. Once it drops, everything you've built will be ashes. And your sister? If I don't finish the job, they'll kill her. Sarah's tears finally spilled over. But if I do finish it, I'll have to watch you lose everything. Watch you go to prison for crimes you didn't commit. And I can't. I won't. James's phone buzzed on his desk. He glanced at the screen and his blood went cold. Unknown number. A video file. He pressed play. The screen showed a young woman, bound to a chair in a dark room, her face bruised and swollen. She looked like Sarah, same eyes, same stubborn chin. A distorted voice spoke. 48 hours, Sarah. Don't make us wait. The video cut to black. Sarah collapsed against the window, a sob tearing from her throat. That's Lily, my baby sister. She was 23 when they took her. James made a decision in that moment that would change everything. Then we have 48 hours to save her, he said, and destroy them instead. Sarah looked up at him, disbelief and hope warring in her eyes. You believe me? I believe that someone capable of sacrificing everything to save her sister is someone worth saving. He moved to his desk, already pulling up encrypted files. But Sarah, if you're lying to me, if this is part of the con, I won't just destroy you. I'll make sure there's nothing left. I know, she whispered. His phone buzzed again. This time, a message from his head of security. Emergency. South entrance breached. Armed intruders. 3 minutes out. James and Sarah locked eyes. They know, she breathed. They know I told you. He grabbed her hand. Then we run. Now. The safe house smelled of dust and old books. James had bought it years ago under a shell corporation, one of a dozen contingencies he'd prepared for enemies he'd never thought would materialize. Now, watching Sarah pace the small living room like a caged animal, he wondered if he'd been preparing for her all along. We need to access their server, Sarah said, her finger tracing patterns on the foggy window. Everything they have on you, on Lily, on their entire operation is stored in one location. If we can get it, we can bring them down. And if we can't, she turned to face him, and in the dim light of the single lamp she looked haunted. Then in 36 hours you become the most wanted man in America, and my sister dies. James pulled up the information from the USB drive on his laptop. Financial records, surveillance photos, recorded conversations. The evidence was damning, meticulously crafted over years, but something caught his eye. This transaction here. He pointed to a wire transfer dated 6 months ago. That's not my signature. It's close, but the loop on the W is wrong. Sarah leaned over his shoulder, and despite everything, his body responded to her nearness. They must have a forger, not just any forger, someone who knows me, knows my patterns. James scrolled through more documents. Someone inside my company. Your business partner. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Richard Chen. James's head snapped up. Chen, like you? My uncle. The words tasted like poison on her tongue. I didn't know until after Lily was taken. He's the one who recruited me, who told me this was the only way to save her. I thought he was helping us, but he's been setting you up from the inside for years. And you never thought to mention this? I thought he was using his position to protect us. Sarah's voice rose, raw with anguish. I thought if I did what they asked, he'd keep Lily safe. But he's been the architect of this whole thing. He wanted your company. He wanted everything you built together, and he's been willing to sacrifice his own nieces to get it. The revelation hung heavy between them. James stood, pacing to the window. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars that had fallen to earth. There's a gala tomorrow night, he said slowly. The Pemberton Foundation charity auction. Richard will be there, so will half the city's elite, including the police commissioner and the district attorney. You want to confront him? In public, I want to force his hand. James turned back to her. If we can get him to admit what he's doing, if we can record it, we might have a chance. He'll never confess. He's too smart for that. He will if he thinks he's won. James pulled up a file on his laptop. I've been working on something. A way to make it look like I'm fleeing the country with embezzled funds. If Richard thinks I'm about to run, thinks his plan is succeeding, he might get cocky enough to slip. Sarah shook her head. That's suicide. If you make yourself look guilty, even for a day, the damage might be irreversible. Then we better make sure we get everything we need tomorrow night. They worked through the night, building their trap. At some point, exhaustion drove them to the couch, sitting close in the darkness. Sarah's head eventually found James's shoulder. I'm sorry, she whispered. For all of it. For lying to you. For making you feel something that started as manipulation. Did it stay manipulation? His voice was rough. She lifted her head to look at him. No. Somewhere between the late nights and the terrible coffee and the way you actually listen when people talk, it became real. Too real. James cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. When this is over, when your sister is safe and my name is clear, we're going to have a very long conversation about trust and second chances. And if it's not over, if we don't make it, he leaned down, his lips hovering inches from hers, then at least I'll know that the last thing I did was try to save the woman I love. The kiss was inevitable, desperate, filled with all the words they didn't have time to say. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. Sarah's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Nice safe house. Did you really think we wouldn't find you? Attached was a photo, taken from across the street. 10 minutes ago. They're here. Sarah breathed. The window exploded inward in a shower of glass. James pulled Sarah down as bullets tore through the room, destroying everything in their path. He grabbed his gun from the drawer, returning fire as he dragged her toward the back door. Go, he shouted. There's a car 2 blocks north, keys under the driver's mat. Not without you. A figure appeared in the doorway. Tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed despite the violence. Richard Chen smiled like a man who'd already won. Hello, Sarah. James. I think it's time we all had a chat about tomorrow night, don't you? Behind him, 3 men with guns filled the doorframe. Richard Chen looked older than James remembered. Or perhaps he'd just never noticed the cruelty in those calculating eyes before, too busy trusting the man he'd built an empire with. You can put the gun down, James, Richard said, his voice smooth as silk. We both know you're not going to shoot your way out of this. Not with Sarah here. Not with what I have to show you. He pulled out a tablet, turning it to face them. The screen showed Lily Chen in real time, still bound to that chair. But now there was someone standing behind her. Someone holding a knife to her throat. Sarah made a sound like a wounded animal. Here's how this works, Richard continued. You two are going to attend the gala tomorrow as planned. James, you're going to give a speech announcing your retirement and the transfer of all company assets to me. You'll cite health concerns, stress, whatever lie helps you sleep at night. And if I refuse? James kept his gun steady, but his mind was racing. Then I give the signal, and Lily's throat gets cut while Sarah watches. Richard's smile never wavered. After that, I release the evidence anyway. You go to prison, I get the company, and Sarah lives the rest of her life knowing her sister died because she fell in love with the wrong man. You son of a... Careful. James, I'm the only thing keeping Lily alive right now. Richard stepped closer. You wanted to know why I'm doing this? You built Wellington Enterprises on ideas I brought you, innovations I developed. But whose name is on the building? Whose face is in Forbes magazine? We were partners. 50-50, just like we agreed. 50-50 of your vision, your leadership, your glory. Richard's mask finally cracked, showing the bitter resentment underneath. I've been in your shadow for 15 years. Now I'm stepping into the light, and you're going to help me, or everyone you care about burns. Sarah's voice cut through the tension. What about after? After he gives you the company, what happens to us? You disappear. New identities, new lives, far away from here. Richard shrugged. I'm not a monster, Sarah. You're family. Lily's family. Once this is done, you're free. You're lying. Sarah's voice was flat, certain. You've kept Lily alive for 3 years because you needed me compliant. The moment James signs those papers, we're all liabilities. You'll kill all of us. Richard's silence was answer enough. James's mind worked through possibilities, discarding options as fast as he thought of them. Then he saw it. The only play they had left. I'll do it, he said. James, no. Sarah grabbed his arm. I'll give you the company, Richard. Tomorrow night, in front of everyone. I'll make it look like my choice. James lowered his gun slowly. But I want proof that Lily is released the moment I sign. Not after. During. Live feed, public place, witnesses. Richard studied him, suspicion and triumph warring on his face. You're planning something. I'm planning to survive, and to keep the women I love alive. James met his former partner's eyes without flinching. You've won, Richard. Enjoy it. Richard considered this, then nodded to his men. We'll be watching, every second until tomorrow night. If you so much as think about running, about calling the police, about reaching out to anyone, Lily dies. Understood? Understood. Richard and his men backed out, leaving James and Sarah alone in the destroyed safe house. The moment they were gone, Sarah turned on him. "Are you insane? You can't just hand him everything." "I'm not going to." James pulled her close, speaking directly into her ear in case the room was bugged. "But he needs to think I am. Tomorrow night, when we're at the gala, that's when we make our real move." "What move?" "He has all the leverage. Not all of it." James pulled out his phone, showing her a single contact. A name she didn't recognize. "I told you I investigate everyone who gets close to me. That includes partners. I've had someone watching Richard for years, documenting everything. Every offshore account, every illegal deal, every skeleton in his closet." "Then why didn't you use it before?" "Because I didn't know how deep his betrayal went. I thought it was just corporate rivalry, not this." He cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. "But now I do. And tomorrow night, we're going to burn his entire operation to the ground. And Lily, we save her first." "That's non-negotiable." James's voice was steel. "I have a team. People Richard doesn't know about. While we're at the gala, they'll be extracting your sister. But we only get one shot at this, Sarah. If we miss, if anything goes wrong, then we all die anyway." Sarah leaned into his touch, drawing strength from it. "I trust you. Even after everything?" "Especially after everything." She kissed him, hard and desperate. "You could have run. You could have saved yourself and left me to burn, but you didn't. So yes, I trust you." They spent the rest of the night preparing, going over every detail until exhaustion finally claimed them. When morning came, James woke to find Sarah standing by the window, silhouetted against the rising sun. "My mother used to tell me a story," she said softly, "about a woman who loved a man so much she walked through fire to save him, and when she emerged on the other side, she was transformed. Not burned, but forged into something stronger." "How did it end?" Sarah turned to him, and in the golden light she looked like something divine and dangerous. "She saved him, but the fire changed them both forever. They could never go back to who they were before." James crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe who we were before wasn't worth going back to." His phone buzzed. A message from his security team. "Package located. Ready for extraction on your signal." They had found Lily. Sarah read the message over his shoulder, hope and terror flooding her face. "This is really happening. This is really happening." James kissed her forehead. "Tonight we end this. All of it. And if something goes wrong?" He looked into her eyes, these windows to a soul that had been twisted by necessity but never broken. "Then we make sure we go down fighting. Together. 20 hours until the gala. 20 hours until everything either fell into place or fell completely apart." Sarah's phone buzzed. A message from Richard. "See you tonight, niece. Don't be late. Lily's counting on you." Attached was a photo of Lily, a fresh bruise blooming on her cheek. Sarah's hands shook as she stared at the image. James took the phone from her, setting it aside. "We're going to get her back," he promised. "I swear to you we're going to get her back." But even as he said the words, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go terribly, irreversibly wrong. The Pemberton Foundation Gala glittered like a diamond, all crystal chandeliers and champagne flutes and people who wielded power like weapons. Sarah moved through the crowd in a midnight blue dress that cost more than she'd made in a year working as a waitress before all of this started. Before she became someone else, before she became a weapon herself. James's hand rested on the small of her back, steady and warm. To anyone watching, they looked like the perfect couple. No one could see the earpiece hidden beneath her hair, or the panic button sewn into the lining of James's jacket. "I see him," James murmured. "North corner, by the Monet." Richard Chen held court among the city's elite, every inch the successful businessman. He caught James's eye and raised his glass in mock salute. Sarah's phone vibrated. A text from James's security team, in position. Eyes on target, awaiting go signal. They had found where Richard was keeping Lily. An abandoned warehouse on the waterfront, guarded but not impenetrable. The plan was simple. James would give his speech, drawing all of Richard's attention to the gala. The moment he started talking, the extraction team would move on Lily. By the time Richard realized what was happening, it would be too late. Simple. Except nothing about this had ever been simple. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host's voice rang out, Please welcome James Wellington to the stage. This was it. The moment everything either worked or failed catastrophically. James squeezed Sarah's hand once, then moved toward the stage. She watched him climb the stairs, this man who had somehow become her entire world in the span of a few weeks. This man she was about to either save or destroy. "Thank you all for coming tonight," James began, his voice carrying easily through the ballroom. "I have an announcement that I've been putting off for too long now." Sarah's phone vibrated again. The team leader. Breach successful. Package secured. Moving to extraction point. They had Lily. Relief flooded through Sarah so powerfully she had to grab the nearby table for support. They actually had her sister. But then James's next words made her blood run cold. "I'm here tonight to confess. That wasn't the plan. That wasn't anywhere close to the plan. For years I've been engaged in illegal activity. Money laundering, insider trading, fraud." James's voice never wavered. "I've built my empire on lies and stolen money, and I can't do it anymore." The room erupted in gasps and shocked murmurs. Sarah pushed through the crowd, trying to reach him. What was he doing? Richard's face had gone from triumphant to confused to furious in the span of seconds. He started moving toward the stage, but James's security team materialized from the crowd, blocking his path. "Everything I've done is documented here," James said, pulling out a USB drive. "Every transaction, every crime. I'm turning myself in tonight, right here, to District Attorney Morrison." "James, stop." Sarah finally reached the stage. "What are you doing?" He looked down at her, and in his eyes she saw the truth. "The sacrifice he was making, saving you," he said simply. "This is the only way." "No." The word tore from her throat. "No, this isn't the plan. We had a plan. The plan changed when I realized Richard has a backup." James's voice dropped so only she could hear. "He has someone in my security team. The extraction was a trap. The moment they touched Lily, Richard would have triggered the evidence dump, sent everything to the authorities, and disappeared. You'd have gotten your sister back just in time to watch me get arrested for crimes I didn't commit. So you're confessing to them instead?" Sarah grabbed his arm. "That's insane." "Not confessing. Controlling the narrative." James pressed something into her hand, another USB drive. "This one has the real evidence. Everything Richard did, everyone he worked with, every crime he actually committed. The drive I just gave to the DA? It's fake. Enough to make me look guilty, but nothing that will actually stick. It'll take them a few days to figure it out, but by then..." His phone buzzed. He looked at it and smiled, sharp and dangerous. "By then, your sister will be safely out of the country with new identities for both of you, and Richard will be in handcuffs." As if summoned, federal agents poured into the ballroom, but they weren't heading for James. They were surrounding Richard Chen, whose face had gone from fury to disbelief to pure terror. "Richard Chen," the lead agent announced. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, kidnapping, attempted murder, and about 40 other charges we'll get to at the station." Richard lunged for Sarah, but the agents restrained him. "You stupid girl! Do you have any idea what you've done? The people I work for, they'll never stop coming for you. They'll have to find me first." Sarah's voice was steady, and I learned from the best how to disappear. As they dragged Richard away, James descended from the stage. The room was chaos, cameras flashing, people shouting questions. But in the center of it all, James and Sarah stood facing each other. "You're still going to have to answer questions," Sarah said. "Even with the fake evidence, this is going to be a nightmare for you." "I've survived worse." James touched her face gently. "Your sister? Safe. Your team got her out before Richard's people could react." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "She's safe, James. After 3 years, she's finally safe. Then it was worth it. All of it." He pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. "Sarah Chen, when this is over, when the investigations are done and the trials are finished, I'm going to find you. Wherever you are, whatever name you're using, I'm going to find you. And then what? And then I'm going to ask you on a proper date. One where neither of us is lying about who we are." Sarah laughed through her tears. "I'd like that. I'd really like that. Miss Chen?" An agent approached them. "We need you to come with us for questioning." Sarah nodded, then looked back at James one last time. "Thank you. For saving me. For saving us. Thank you for stealing my heart. James smiled. And despite everything, it was genuine. Turns out it was the best thing anyone ever took from me. They led her away, and James watched her go, knowing it might be months or even years before he saw her again. But he'd wait. He'd built an empire from nothing. He could rebuild his reputation. He could weather any storm. And at the end of it all, there would be Sarah. Not Emma Rodriguez. Not a lie. But the real woman beneath the masks. The woman who had walked through fire and emerged transformed. The woman who had loved him enough to tell the truth when lies would have been easier. His phone buzzed one final time. A message from an unknown number. Thank you for everything. See you on the other side. James looked out at the city beyond the ballroom windows, at all those fallen stars twinkling in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Sarah was starting a new life. Somewhere out there, her sister was finally free. Somewhere out there, a future was waiting for all of them. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing worth having ever was, but they had survived. They had won. And someday, when the dust settled and the world moved on to the next scandal, they would find their way back to each other. Because some things, some people, were worth walking through fire for, worth risking everything for, worth becoming someone new for. James Wellington smiled and walked out of the ballroom, leaving behind the wreckage of one life and stepping toward the promise of another. 6 months later, in a small cafe in Barcelona, a man with slightly grayer hair sat down across from a woman with shorter black hair and glasses. "Is this seat taken?" James asked. Sarah looked up, and her entire face transformed with joy. "I've been saving it for you." He reached across the table and took her hand. "Tell me your real story, all of it. No more secrets." "No more secrets," she agreed. "But it's going to take a while." "I have time." James smiled. "I have all the time in the world." And there, in a cafe halfway around the world from where their story began, they started again. Not as CEO and assistant, not as target and weapon, but as two people who had survived the fire and emerged, not unscathed, but unbroken. Two people who had learned that sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the greatest betrayals, and that redemption isn't about erasing the past, but about choosing who you want to become despite it. Sarah squeezed his hand. "So, about that proper date you promised me." James laughed, the sound free and unburdened in a way it hadn't been in years. "I know just the place, the end."